Hi guys, Brant here, and welcome to another commentary video. Today it's going to be a little bit of a different one. This is going to be more of an educational thing, and it's going to be specifically for the survivor side of things, which is not usually my wheelhouse, but I was stumbling across this post here on Reddit asking about the hook etiquette when it comes to somebody being face camped. And I feel like this is something that, especially when I'm playing Survivor solo queue or only in a duo, that I noticed a lot of survivors seem to do inefficiently. When it comes to what do I do? How do I circumvent a killer that just, the first person they hook, they just stand there and face camp them? How do we get around the situation? Especially if it's somebody like Bubba or Hillbilly, as the post points out, that just stands there at the hook and just kind of makes it a very miserable, unsalvageable situation. Well, I'm going to tell you how you salvage the situation because it's a little bit simpler than the on-the-nose counterplay that you're probably thinking of. So yeah, let's go ahead and break this down because I feel like if you listen to this and you hear me out here, I feel like you're going to have a lot more fun time in your matches because it's not as unsalvageable as you think. So, what do you do in this situation when somebody's being face cam? Usually when you're in a situation where you're playing out in the wild of Dead by Daylight, it's kind of like confusing and kind of an anxious situation because you don't want to just leave that person on hook for the entire duration of their hook stages, because obviously you want that person to be able to play it. It kind of sucks that that person's just standing there and completely denying this person the ability to play the video game outside of their first chase. So you feel bad. So you're if you have an altruistic bone in your body in real life, you want to go get that person off hook. That way they can actually play the video game. But obviously that's kind of what the killer is trying to bait you into doing. That's what they're trying to get you to do, is to come in, not selfishly. They're trying to get you to go in and, very heroically dive in for the save. And now they have two people down and they can hook the other guy. And then now you're both on hook. And now the killer's just getting a lot of free pressure for quite literally standing in one place, which is really crazy, really absurd. So what do you do in this situation? Because the opposite idea is that we just leave them on hook for the entire hook timer. They die on first hook, and we just try to push out as many gens as possible to try and get around the fact that this person is just sitting there and face camping, which is not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea. Compared to the two things that I just listed, I would much rather you go with the latter situation than the former. Definitely don't dive bomb the hook and try to essentially buy into the crappy tactic that the killer is trying to do. Definitely try to, I would rather you go and try to get as many gens done as possible before that person dies. But there's a secret third option. There's actually a secret third option that is actually more efficient than doing either of these things, and it's kind of like a mixture of them. So it kind of plays to both of your instincts, which is to, don't leave that guy on hook, but also, you probably want to counter pressure the guy camping by putting out as many gens as possible. So it combines both. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So what you should do in a situation where somebody is being face camped, especially if it's like Bubba or Hillbilly, where there's kind of like, you can't, trick the killer into messing up and grabbing them because their power is just really good, really good at camping. This goes for like Trickster, Huntress, stuff like that too. What you want to do is start off with the latter thing that I mentioned. If somebody is being face camped and you can clearly tell they're being face camped, either you can see them, you can see it through Kindred, the killer's just standing there at the hook and that's their game plan. What you want to do is, like I said, get on gens and try to counter pressure, because essentially what the killer is doing is trying to add a lot of free pressure to the match against you as the survivors by, camping somebody out of the game and making it a 3v1 relatively quickly. So you need to counteract that pressure by putting out your objective, which is, the generators. You need to put out as much gen pressure as possible. But the error I see is that a lot of people just kind of like leave the guy on hook for their entire two hook stages, and that's realistically not the most time efficient thing to do when it comes to actually trying to counter a face camper. If you did not know this, in the game of Dead by Daylight, every single one of your hook stages is 60 seconds, so it is a full minute. You actually have a full minute to sit there on hook until you hit your next stage, whether that be your second stage or your death. You have 60 whole seconds to do that, which is a lot of time. Gens and DBD are only 90 seconds, so you can sit there for most of a gen before your next hook stage actually hits. So I bet you can see where this is going. This is where you actually start to take advantage of how long that timer is. So the idea, the game plan, is that you do what sorry. That was dumb. But what you do is you do that. You go and you do the gens, try to get as much gen pressure as possible. But when you start hitting that 50-second mark, you'll be able to visually see it on the screen. It'll start getting really close to that middle bar on their hook stage meter. You need to go in and trade for that person. Somebody needs to go in and trade for them. And especially with like Bubba or Hillbilly, they're almost definitely going to fall for it if you don't screw it up. Is like they're just going to like rev their chainsaw and they'll be like, haha, I'm just going to down this guy and then put him on hook. And then now I'm good. I'm still face camping. But what you do in that situation by going in and trading in those last 10 seconds available to you is you buy time for that person to get back into the match so they get to play, which is the thing, the altruistic thing that we start off with. That person doesn't get to sit on hook all match, they actually get to play, which is good. But also, you have a whole new 60 seconds. Fresh because he hasn't hooked anybody else. You are completely fresh. You have 2 whole hook stages to go through before you die now. And you are essentially buying more time for the team by doing that, because even if he decides to face camp you through that most of that like 60 seconds that you have on your first hook state, that's 60 more seconds out in the map, which is 60 more seconds towards gens getting done. And then you wash, rinse, repeat. Somebody else comes in, trades for you, and you're all taking essentially what is your first hook over and over and over. So nobody is realistically dying, because you're just having this same situation repeat of everybody sits on hook for 50 seconds and then they just trade. So nobody's going to second. So the killer's not going to be in a situation where you have to get them. You have to get the guy off the hook. And the killer just, you know, gets somebody out and makes it through one as quick as possible. You're just kind of like trading who's getting face camped, essentially. You're just kind of just like trading who's getting face camped, which is funny, until you don't have to anymore, until like the end game. Now the end game gets a little bit more messy because, like, obviously, you know, trading at the end game gets kind of messy, and you know, he's probably gonna get his 1K. He's probably going to get his 1K. That's just kind of like, especially with like Bubba or something like that, he's probably going to get his 1K. It's really hard to get a Bubba to mess up because he is such an effective face camper because of his M2. But in terms of Dead by Daylight, while there are no win or loss, you know, parameters, most people consider a 1K a loss and a 3-out a win for the survivors. So by doing this, you buy enough time for all the gens to get done, and nobody dies before the first 5 gens are finished, which guarantees a 3-out, whether that be through, you know, trading for the last guy and then the 3 of you leave, or just leaving that whoever happened to be face camped at the time in on hook, and then you guys all leave. But it's essentially a very good way to guarantee a 3-out, because by that point in the match, if you pull it off correctly, which I know is easier said than done because of solo queue, but that's, you know, why I'm making this video, so, you know, we can raise awareness about it. You will almost always end up in a 3-out situation, because everybody will essentially have only one hook. Essentially, everybody will only be on first hook, and so even if he comes down somebody at the end of the game, you know, they're not death hooks, so that buys you more time to do shenanigans at the end game to hopefully save them as well. So yeah, there's a lot of bonuses and caveats to kind of like mixing the two mindsets, which is to go save right away, and to you know, try to crank out gens to punish them. Like most things in life, the most effective and best answer is in the middle. It's with compromise. So TLDR, if you want to counter a face camper, especially an effective face camper like Bubba or Hillbilly, make sure that you leave the person on hook for like 50 seconds, and those last 10 seconds go in and trade for them, and keep doing that. That way you're in a situation where everybody's first hook and they're only trading who is currently on hook, and nobody's actually dying on hook until we get to the end game situation. So yeah, hopefully that was helpful. Hope you can take that into your survivor games and have better results, especially against face campers. But other than that, it's gonna be it for today's video. Hopefully that helped. I said that twice. I'm just, you know, sometimes I look at myself and I'm like, wow, you've been doing this for years at this point, and you still stumble over yourself literally all the time. Will I ever get used to this? Good question. Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z, which is, you know, tomorrow, because I upload daily. That was a good segue, totally. Anyways, I appreciate y'all. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the tomorrow zone, but if I do not, I will see you when I see you. Goodbye.